Here we are, Tier 3 dynamic movement. Today we're going to get into more difficult exercise than we've done thus far. And you guys are going to notice this as we go along, that sometimes I'm going to give you really challenging exercises, and sometimes we're going to regress back a little bit and do less challenging exercises. With the evolution of your exercise journey, it's important for you to understand that it's not super important to push yourself 110% every single workout, okay? So when I offer you an easier exercise than maybe the previous exercise routine that we did, it doesn't mean that you're not still making progress. It just means that you didn't challenge yourself quite as much today to allow your body to catch up and be able to adapt without overexerting itself. Overtraining is something that's being studied a lot now, and basically what that means is if you work out too much, too hard on a daily basis, you'll actually go the wrong way. And I know this because I've done it. I've worked out every single day for multiple hours a day, and I've not made progress before. And it's really interesting, right? Because you think, oh, I put in this work, I should be going forward, I should be making progress. But if the body gets stressed out too much, too intensely, and too often, then it'll actually become overstressed, and it won't adapt in a positive way. It'll adapt in a negative way. So trust my experience in this, and just know that when I program something that's a little bit harder, it's meant to be harder. And when I program something that's meant to be easier, it's meant to be easier as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. So today, the harder exercise that we're going to do is actually a lunge with a twist, okay? We've done split squats before. Now, a split squat looks like this. Okay, we did that a few weeks ago. We've also done some lateral lunging. Okay, now today we're going to do an actual stepping lunge. It looks like a split squat, but it's actually a lunge forward into the same position. So you actually start standing. I'm going to step forward. Now as I go down, much like into the split squat, I'm going to tap my knee, but now I'm going to twist over my forward leg and then step back. Now this is meant to be done simultaneously, so it's actually meant to be a step and twist at the same time. Step forward, twist as you go down, push yourself dynamically back up into a vertical position. So it's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of balance being challenged in this motion. And as we go down, it's important that you get a full rotation over and toward the forward leg, okay? So let's break it down into pieces. Don't just run and jump into this exercise, but first is the step. The step is really important because we have to go far enough that you have space to be able to drop your back knee towards the ground. And when I go down towards the ground here, what you can see is that my leg here is basically vertical, going straight into the ground. And then my shin, my lower leg here, is basically vertical, going into the ground as well. Now if I went too far, it would look like this. Now see how this knee is way back here? This is okay, it's just more challenging. So you're not taking that big of a step today. And then also if I went too narrow, if I did this, then that's not quite a lunge either. This is getting more into a half sissy squat kind of situation. And we don't want this either. You can see my back leg is much too bent. Okay, if this knee goes too far forward over these toes, that's not good either. And we want the foot to remain flat on the ground. So there's a lot of things that go into the proper step distance, and it's like this. This is what it should look like. Okay. Now I'll demonstrate in this angle. As I step forward, I'm twisting to my right over my forward leg, tapping my back knee to the ground, and then pushing powerfully back up to standing. Okay? Step, twist, tap, punch back. Now step forward, lower slowly, barely tap the knee, and then drive back. Okay, this would be the other direction. Step, twist, tap, push back forcefully. Now you don't need to actually tap the ground either. If going to the ground, tapping your back knee to the ground is a little bit too low for you, it can look something like this. Just step lower, twist, back knee not touching, push back. Step, twist, push back. And I promise you, you're going to get a plenty good workout as you do that as well. Now you're going to do 15 a side there, okay? That's going to get really aerobic. You're going to notice your heart rate is going up quite a bit. Okay, that's because it's a super dynamic movement. There's a lot of power involved in pushing yourself back really quickly. So just notice how the heart rate goes up. Once you finish 15 each side, take a breath, relax, press pause in the video, and then we're going to get straight into the second exercise, which is this, okay? So basically, we're going from plank into down dog on one leg. Now, plank is this position. Okay, it's in yoga. It also looks like a push-up position, right? The beginning of a push-up position. Down dog is this, right? This is a yoga pose meant to open up the shoulders, the hamstrings, the low back. Now, to make the movement dynamic and going back and forth is we're going to do the plank to down dog on one foot multiple times, and then we're going to switch sides. Okay, so what does that look like? Basically, push-up position. I'm going to take my left foot off the ground and I'm going to keep it off the ground. Okay, so my left leg is straight and off the ground. Now I'm going to push my hips back and up while my back leg goes off way up into the sky. So my head is pushing towards my foot, my arms straight, my right leg is straight so I get a nice hamstring stretch. My shoulders are working, and then I'm going to shift forward to go flat again. And then I'm going to shift back. And then forward. Nice and flat each time you come to the plank. I'll show you what it looks like from this angle. Notice my arms are straight. Really want to focus on the arms staying straight, legs staying straight. There's no bending. Now there's a lot of things that go into that exercise, right? You got your shoulders working, your triceps, your core is pushing you back and holding you back. You got your hip working on one side, the foot that's down. You got your hamstring opening up, your core, as I already said. So a lot of things are going into that. Do 10 each side without trying to stop in between. So do 10, then do 10, then relax, okay? And then the third and final exercise is actually not dynamic, okay? I know in dynamic movement, we're like, okay, dynamic movement means we're moving, we're getting stronger. This is a really tough exercise, but we're not moving, okay? So that's why I put it here, because I find it to be really challenging for myself, for my clients, and it'll likely be challenging for you. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to hold a squat. Now this looks different for everybody because of our body mechanics, our proportions, right? So I'm 6'5", I have long ass femurs, okay? So a squat position looks a lot different for me than someone that is 5'5", right? And very likely they make it look easier than I do, okay? So I've had to put a lot of work into holding this position, getting into this position, and practicing being here. So it's not necessarily comfortable for me, it is still work, and it is going to be work for you, and it's not going to be comfortable for you either, but that's why we're doing it, okay? So now a squat, which is something we've worked on, is from a standing position, you drop down, you come up, right? That's a squat. Today we're going to get down and we're going to hold it. So what I'm trying to think about here is keeping my feet flat to the ground. My toes are pushing into the ground to grip the ground. I'm trying to keep my posture nice and tall so my chest is upright. I'm trying to push my knees laterally away from each other. So this would be a relaxed knee and hip position. Now watch what I do here. So when I push my knees out, I activate my glute medius and my hips better. So you want to drive the knees laterally. I like having my arms out in front of me for a little bit of chest counterbalance, so I always recommend that. Now you're just going to hold this. I recommend breathing per usual. Now you're going to try to hold this for 1 to 2 minutes. 1 to 2 minutes. Your legs are going to burn. Your back might burn a little bit in a good way, don't worry. Your feet, your shins, there's a lot of different possibilities what's burning here. because we're using a lot of our body. Now, many of us will not be able to squat that low. I know there was a time where I couldn't squat that low. It takes a lot of work to be able to work on that hip mobility. So what some of us might have to do is put our heels on a surface. So maybe we're putting our heels on a pillow, a pad, some sort of edge or step. Whatever you need to elevate your heels on, go ahead and do so if you need to. And that'll give your ankles a little bit of essentially a cheat to be able to sink into your hips rather than your ankles. Usually ankles and also hips can be a limiting factor in getting into the full depth of the squat. For me, the limiting factor is the ankles. So when I lift my heels off the ground, it allows me to sink into my hips much more, and you can see my chest is much more upright, okay? And I can hold this a lot longer than if I was holding the previous one. Both are good to practice. Go ahead and choose an elevation that's appropriate for you. Hold it. Remember, pushing the knees out, keeping the chest upright, hands out in front, and do 1 to 2 minutes. Cinco de Mayo, you guys. Have fun today. I hope you enjoyed this workout. Hope everything's going well for you, and I will see you on Friday.